Before we begin, if you love true horror stories, subscribe, share, and keep the lights off, because once you listen, the forest remembers your name. The settlers stood in a semicircle around the ancient oak, their torches casting dancing shadows across faces etched with desperation and fear. 23 souls had survived the journey westward, only to find themselves trapped by an early winter and surrounded by a forest that seemed to breathe with malevolent consciousness. Reverend Elias Crane, self-appointed leader of the group, clutched his Bible with trembling hands as he addressed the creature that stood before them. If stood was the right word for something that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple spaces, its form flickering between solid and smoke, between human and something infinitely older. "We accept your terms," Elias said, his voice barely above a whisper. "One life given freely on the night when the veil is thinnest, in exchange for safe passage, for protection, for the right to build our lives upon this land." The thing that would later be known only as the Keeper tilted its head, and when it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, from the rustling leaves, from the very soil beneath their feet, from the hollow spaces in their own chests. One life willingly given, one name spoken in darkness, one soul to feed the roots. Every year on this night when the barrier weakens, miss even a single offering and the pact is void. Then I take not one but all. Sarah Blackwood, the youngest among them at 17, stepped forward before anyone could stop her. Her copper hair caught the firelight as she moved with a strange serenity toward the Keeper. "No, Sarah," her father began, but she silenced him with a look. "Someone must be first," she said simply. "Let it be me. Let my sacrifice mean something. Let my death give life to something better than this fear." She approached the ancient oak, its trunk wider than 3 men standing side by side, its branches reaching up into the darkness like grasping fingers. The Keeper watched her with eyes that were sometimes human, sometimes like dark pools reflecting nothing but void. "Your name will be remembered," the Keeper promised. "Every year I will call it. Every year another must answer, or the debt falls due on all." Sarah placed her palm against the rough bark of the oak. The moment her skin made contact, roots erupted from the ground, wrapping around her ankles, her wrists, pulling her backward against the tree. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She only looked at her people, her family, her friends, the children she would never see grow, and smiled. "Build something beautiful," she whispered. "Make this worth it." The oak swallowed her whole, the bark flowing like water around her form until she became part of the tree itself. In that moment, the forest changed. The oppressive weight that had pressed upon them lifted slightly. The wind, which had howled with hunger, now merely whispered. The shadows, which had writhed with intent, now only watched. Reverend Crane fell to his knees. "What have we done?" "We have survived," said Thomas Blackwood, Sarah's father, his voice hollow as a grave. "We have purchased our future with blood." And so the settlement of Blackwood was founded, named in honor of the girl who became the first offering. They built their homes, raised their families, and prospered in ways they never had before. The forest provided game aplenty, the soil yielded rich harvests, and illness seemed to pass them by. But every year, on October 31st, as the sun set and darkness claimed the land, they heard it, a voice calling from the forest, speaking a name. And every year someone walked into those trees and never returned. Sometimes it was the elderly, ready for rest. Sometimes it was someone broken by grief or illness. And sometimes, when no one volunteered, someone was simply chosen. The Keeper always claimed its due. By 1850, the population had grown to over 200. The pattern was established, the ritual understood. On All Hallows' Eve, the town would gather at the edge of the forest. When the name was called, one would answer. It became tradition, then religion, then simply the way things were. Generations passed. The original settlers died. Their children forgot the full horror of that first night, and their children's children knew only the sanitized version told in hushed voices. The forest protects us, but requires tribute. One life for the many. This is our burden and our blessing. But Sarah Blackwood's father kept a diary. He wrote down everything he witnessed that night, the true nature of the Keeper, the exact words of the pact, and his growing suspicion that they had made a terrible mistake. He wrote of his nightmares, in which Sarah's voice called to him from within the ancient oak, begging for release, for an end to the cycle, On his deathbed in 1867, Thomas Blackwood confessed to his grandson, "The price is too high. Someone must find a way to break the pact. Someone must free us from what we've become." He died before he could explain how. His diary was hidden, passed down in secret through the Blackwood family line, waiting for someone brave enough or desperate enough to use its knowledge. That someone would be Maya Vance. But that story begins much later, on another October 31st, when the forest would call a name that echoed across 15 years of grief, mystery and loss. The story begins with another offering, another life, another link in a chain forged in blood and desperation. The story begins with Jonathan Vance, a journalist who came to Blackwood seeking truth and found only darkness. October 20th, present-day Maya Vance had driven past the "Welcome to Blackwood Population 347" sign 3 times before she finally allowed her rental car to continue down the main road. Each time her foot had found the brake. Her hands had pulled the wheel around. Her mind had screamed that this was a mistake, that some doors should remain closed, some questions unanswered, some ghosts left to their eternal rest. But on the 4th approach, she thought of the photograph in her wallet, a faded Polaroid of a man with kind eyes and an infectious smile, holding a 5-year-old girl on his shoulders. She thought of the empty chair at every birthday, every graduation, every milestone. She thought of her mother's slow descent into grief-soaked numbness, the way she'd started calling Maya Sarah in those final days before the cancer took her. She thought of 15 years of not knowing, so she drove on. Blackwood looked exactly as she remembered it from the few photographs her father had sent before his disappearance. A small town nestled in a valley, surrounded on 3 sides by dense, dark forest that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The architecture was anachronistic, a mixture of Victorian-era homes, mid-century storefronts, and newer constructions that tried and failed to match the older building's character. The main street, creatively named Main Street, consisted of perhaps 24 businesses. A general store with faded awning, a diner called the Morning Oak that looked like it hadn't updated its menu since 1985, a library housed in what had once been a church, its stained glass windows depicting not saints, but trees. The sheriff's office that doubled as town hall, and at the far end, barely visible in the late afternoon light, a small bed and breakfast called the Crane House. Maya had made a reservation 3 weeks ago under her mother's maiden name, Richardson. Instinct told her that the name Vance might draw unwanted attention in a town where her father had become something of a local legend. The journalist who went into the forest and never came out. The outsider who'd asked too many questions. She parked in front of the Crane House, a 3-story Victorian painted in shades of grey and black that made it look like a photograph from another era. The sign hanging above the porch showed a crane in flight, but the artist had given the bird's eyes an unsettling human quality. Before she could reach the front steps, the door opened and a woman emerged. She was perhaps 60, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that seemed to catalogue Maya's every feature with unsettling precision. Ms. Richardson, presume. The woman's voice was cultured, carrying traces of an accent Maya couldn't quite place. "I'm Eleanor Crane. Welcome to my establishment. Thank you for accommodating me on such short notice," Maya said, climbing the steps with her overnight bag. "I know you're probably getting ready for the festival." Eleanor's expression flickered just for a moment, with something that might have been surprise or concern or perhaps recognition. "The festival, yes, you've done your research." "I'm a writer," Maya said, sticking to the cover story she'd prepared. "I'm working on a book about small-town American festivals and traditions. The Harvest Festival here sounded fascinating." "Fascinating?" Eleanor repeated the word as if tasting it, finding it distasteful. "That's one word for it. Please come in." The interior of the Crane House matched its exterior's Victorian aesthetic. Dark wood paneling, antique furniture that looked uncomfortable and probably was, and dozens of old photographs lining the walls. Maya found herself drawn to them as Eleanor went to prepare the check-in paperwork. The photographs showed Blackwood through the decades. She could chart the town's history through fashion and architecture, watching as dirt roads became paved, as horse-drawn carriages gave way to automobiles, as the town grew and changed. But one thing remained constant in every photograph: the forest. In the background of every image, dark and eternal, the trees watched. "Your room is on the 3rd floor," Eleanor said, returning with an actual brass key, no modern key cards here. "Room 7. You'll have a lovely view of the town square where most of the festival activities will take place." "And the forest?" Maya asked, keeping her tone casual. "I'd love to get some photographs of it for the book. Maybe take a walk through the trails." Eleanor's hand, extended with the key, froze. "I would strongly advise against that, Miss Richardson. The forest here is not like other forests. People have a tendency to lose their way, even experienced hikers. Has anyone gone missing recently?" The question hung in the air between them. Eleanor's eyes, already sharp, seemed to bore into Maya's soul, and for a terrifying moment, Maya thought her cover was blown. But then Eleanor simply smiled, a tight, controlled expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Not recently, no. But we take the safety of our visitors very seriously. The festival activities will keep you plenty busy, I assure you. Now let me show you to your room." Maya followed Eleanor up 2 flights of stairs, noting how the woman moved with surprising grace despite her age, how the floorboards never creaked under her feet, though they groaned under Maya's. The walls on each floor displayed more photographs, and Maya caught glimpses of faces that might have been familiar, similar cheekbones, that same set to the jaw, suggesting that many of Blackwood's families had been here for generations. Room 7 was small but impeccably clean, decorated in muted greens and browns. The bed was a 4-poster with a hand-stitched quilt depicting a forest scene. The window, as promised, overlooked the town square and beyond it, stretching into the distance like a dark ocean. The forest. "Breakfast is served from 7 to 9, Eleanor said, lingering in the doorway. "I should mention that have only 2 other guests at the moment, Mr. Harper, who's here to visit family, and Dr. Chen, who's doing some kind of botanical survey. You'll meet them at breakfast, I'm sure." "Botanical survey?" Maya's interest perked up. "Of the forest, around it, never in it. Dr. Chen is eccentric but not foolish." Eleanor paused, then added, "Miss Richardson, may I ask what brought you to Blackwood specifically? There are dozens of small towns in this region with harvest festivals." Maya had her answer prepared. "Read about the harvest festival online. It mentioned something about unique local traditions dating back to the town's founding. That kind of historical continuity is rare." "Indeed." Eleanor studied her for a long moment. "Well, I hope you find what you're looking for. Dinner is at 6 if you'd like to join us. Otherwise, the Morning Oak serves until 8. After Eleanor left, Maya sat on the bed and pulled out her phone. No service, she'd expected that. The research she'd done before coming here had warned her that cell coverage in Blackwood was spotty at best. The town had internet, courtesy of a satellite connection, but it was slow and unreliable. She opened her laptop instead, pulling up the files she'd compiled over the past year, ever since she'd finally gathered the courage to investigate her father's disappearance. Jonathan Vance had been an investigative journalist for the Chicago Tribune, known for his dedication to uncovering uncomfortable truths. In October 15 years ago, he'd been working on a story about unusual death rates in rural communities. Blackwood had caught his attention because of its remarkably low crime rate, coupled with a peculiar statistical anomaly. Every year, like clockwork, 1 person died on October 31st. Not from natural causes, not from accidents, but from what the official reports vaguely termed misadventure in the forest. He'd come to Blackwood to investigate, planning to stay for 2 weeks. He'd sent regular emails and made phone calls to Maya's mother for the first 5 days. His messages had been excited. At first he'd said the townsfolk were friendly, but evasive, that he'd found references to an old pact in the town's historical records, that there was something here, something big. Then on October 25th, his messages had changed tone. "Found someone willing to talk," he'd written, a descendant of one of the original families. "Sarah, they're afraid. All of them. Not of punishment or social pressure. They're genuinely terrified of the forest. I'm going to meet my source tonight at the old cemetery on the edge of town. We'll call tomorrow with details." He never called. He never came home. And when Maya's mother had finally convinced the local police to investigate, they'd found Jonathan's rental car parked at the forest edge. his camera bag sitting on the passenger seat, his recorder lying in the dirt path leading into the trees. The recorder had been turned on. The last thing it captured was Jonathan's voice saying, "Can hear something, it sounds like Sarah calling my name." But that's impossible. Sarah's at home in Chicago. Sarah's only 5 years old. Then there was the sound of footsteps, leaves rustling, and Jonathan's voice one last time. "Sarah? Baby, is that you? How did you get here?" After that, nothing but static and forest sounds for 3 hours until the battery died. The police had searched for a week. They'd brought in search and rescue teams, dogs, volunteers from neighboring towns. They'd found no trace of Jonathan Vance beyond that initial trail. It was as if the forest had simply swallowed him whole. The official conclusion was that he'd suffered some kind of mental break, wandered into the forest and succumbed to exposure or accident. The case was closed. His body was never recovered. Maya had been too young to understand at first, then too angry, then too consumed by her own grief as her mother slowly faded, the loss of her husband eating her alive from the inside out. It was only after her mother's death 6 months ago that Maya had found the box in the attic, the box containing all of her father's research on Blackwood, along with a letter addressed to Maya in her mother's shaky handwriting. Your father found something. In that town, something they desperately wanted to keep hidden. He was too close to the truth and they silenced him. Spent 15 years trying to find the courage to go back, to demand answers, but my courage died with him. Maybe yours is stronger. Maybe you can finish what he started. But Maya, my darling girl, if you go to Blackwood, be careful. Trust no one. The whole town is complicit in whatever darkness lives there. And whatever you do, don't go into the forest after dark. Don't let them call your name. Maya closed her laptop and moved to the window. The sun was setting, painting, the sky in shades of orange and red that made it look like the world was burning. In the dying light, the forest seemed to grow darker, its shadows reaching toward the town like grasping fingers. Somewhere in those trees, her father had met his end. And somewhere in this town, people knew the truth about what had happened to him. She had 11 days until October 31st. 11 days to uncover the truth, to finish her father's investigation, to finally lay his ghost to rest. 11 days until the forest claimed its annual offering. Maya pulled out the Polaroid of her father, studying his smile, his kind eyes. "I'm here, Dad," she whispered. "I'm going to find out what happened to you, I promise." From somewhere in the distance, carried on the evening breeze, came the sound of wind through leaves, or perhaps voices, whispering secrets in a language just beyond human comprehension. The forest was speaking. Maya shivered and closed the curtain. Maya skipped dinner at the Crane House. The thought of making small talk with Eleanor's knowing eyes fixed upon her felt unbearable. Instead, she walked to the Morning Oak as the sun disappeared behind the western mountains, plunging Blackwood into premature twilight. The diner was surprisingly busy for a town of 347 people. Nearly every booth was occupied, and the conversation ceased the moment Maya pushed through the door. 24 pairs of eyes turned to assess the stranger in their midst. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the sizzle of the grill and the hum of the overhead lights. Then an older man, 70s perhaps, with a weathered face and calloused hands, nodded in her direction. "Evening, miss." "Evening," Maya replied, and as if that simple exchange had granted permission, the conversations resumed. But she felt the glances, the sidelong looks, the assessment happening beneath the surface of mundane small-town pleasantries. She slid into a booth near the back, accepting a sticky plastic menu from a waitress who couldn't have been more than 19. Her name tag read Cassie, and her smile was genuine, if tired. "You're the writer staying at the Crane House," Cassie said. It wasn't a question. "Mrs. Crane mentioned you were in town for the festival. What can I get you?" "How did you?" Maya began, then stopped, of course. In a town this small, news traveled fast. "Coffee and a burger, please. Whatever's good." "Everything's good, but I'd recommend the Oak Burger. It's got this special sauce my mom makes. Nobody knows the recipe except her and Mrs. Chen, who owns the place. Fair warning, though, it's messy." "Sounds perfect." As Cassie walked away, Maya pulled out a small notebook, the kind that looked innocent, just a tourist jotting down impressions. In reality, she'd already begun documenting everything she observed. The number of people in the Diner 27, including Cassie and a cook she could see through the kitchen window. The town's apparent prosperity, despite its remoteness, clean storefronts, well-maintained buildings, newer model cars parked along Main Street. The age demographic skewed older, very few teenagers, almost no young children. But most importantly, the trees. Everywhere she looked, trees featured in the town's iconography. The library's stained glass, the diner's name, the pattern carved into the wooden booths. Even the salt and pepper shakers were shaped like small oaks. First time in Blackwood, Maya looked up to find an Asian woman, mid-50s, standing beside her booth. She wore hiking clothes and carried herself with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in their own SK. "In, Dr. Chen," Maya guessed. "Guilty, may I?" She gestured to the opposite seat and Maya nodded. "Eleanor mentioned we'd have another guest. Sarah Chen, though most people just call me Dr. Chen. It's a small-town thing, titles stick harder than names here." "Maya Rich." Maya caught herself. "Richardson. Nice to meet you." If Dr. Chen noticed the stumble, she didn't show it. "A writer," Eleanor said, "documenting small-town festivals. That must take you to interesting places." "It does." Maya decided to probe gently. "How long have you been in Blackwood?" Eleanor mentioned a botanical survey. 3 months now, on and off. I'm with the State University, studying forest ecosystem dynamics. The forest here is unusual. Very old growth, remarkably preserved. The town has protected it from logging and development for generations. Dr. Chen's expression was casual, but her eyes were sharp. Though they're not particularly welcoming of people who want to study it too closely. Really? Why not? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Officially, it's about preservation, respecting the town's heritage, not disturbing the ecosystem. But there's something almost religious about how they regard that forest. Like it's not just a protected space, but sacred ground. Cassie returned with Maya's coffee, greeting Dr. Chen with familiar warmth. "The usual, Dr. Chen. Please. And put Ms. Richardson's dinner on my tab, would you?" Consider it a welcome to Blackwood gesture. After Cassie left, Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping. "Ms. Richardson, I'm going to be direct because you seem intelligent, and I suspect you're not really here about harvest festivals. What's your actual interest in this town?" Maya's pulse quickened. She'd expected suspicion, but not quite this direct. "What makes you think?" "Because nobody comes to Blackwood by accident anymore. It's not on the way to anywhere. It's not a tourist destination. And the so-called Harvest Festival is barely advertised beyond word of mouth to people who already know about it. So I'll ask again, why are you really here?" Maya made a split-second decision. Dr. Chen was an outsider like herself, someone else who'd noticed the town's strangeness. And if Maya was going to get answers, she'd need an ally who wasn't part of Blackwood's closed community. "My father disappeared here," she said quietly. 15 years ago. He was a journalist investigating the unusual death statistics. He went into the forest on October 25th and never came out." Dr. Chen's expression shifted surprise, then something like recognition, then carefully controlled neutrality. "Jonathan Vance." Maya's heart nearly stopped. "You know his name. I know the story. Everyone here does. Though they don't like talking about it. The reporter who ignored the warnings went into the forest and proved why outsiders should respect local wisdom." Dr. Chen's tone made it clear she was quoting someone else's words. "I'm sorry for your loss. They never found his body. Never even found evidence of what happened to him beyond his abandoned car. Same as all the others." "Others?" Maya leaned forward. "There were others who went missing?" Dr. Chen glanced around, ensuring no one was paying them undue attention. "Every year on October 31st, someone dies in that forest. Official records say it's accidents. Falls, exposure, animal attacks. But I've been reviewing death certificates and police reports. The pattern goes back to the town's founding in 1843. 1 death per year, always on Halloween, always in the forest. Sometimes it's someone old and sick. Sometimes someone depressed or troubled. But every single year, like clockwork. That's why my father came here, and possibly why he died." Dr. Chen's expression was grim. "Maya, may I call you Maya? I don't know what happened to your father, but I've been here long enough to know this town has secrets that people will kill to protect. If you're planning to dig into his disappearance, you need to be very, very careful, says the woman who's been studying the forest for 3 months. I study soil samples and tree growth patterns. Don't ask questions about dead people or local superstitions. There's a difference between scientific curiosity and sticking your nose into dangerous mysteries. Cassie returned with their food, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. Dr. Chen's research fascinating details about carbon dating and growth rings. Maya's supposed book project improvised details about American folklore, the upcoming Harvest Festival. Apparently the entire town participated, and attendance was considered mandatory if you wanted to remain in the community's good graces. But as they ate, Dr. Chen slid a business card across the table. On the back, written in hasty script, "Library Midnight. Bring a flashlight." Maya met her eyes and nodded slightly. After dinner, Maya walked the length of Main Street, noting the storefronts and the people who watched her from windows. She stopped at a small general store, General Goods. The sign read Est, 1847, and bought a flashlight, batteries, and a local map. The clerk, a thin man with nervous energy, took her money without comment, but his hands shook as he made change. "You staying for the festival?" he asked as she was about to leave. "That's the plan." Good, good. You'll want to be at the town square on Halloween night. 7 o'clock. Don't be late." His voice carried a strange urgency. "And don't, under any circumstances, go into the forest that night. You understand?" "I understand," Maya lied. Back at the Crane house, she found Eleanor in the parlor reading by lamplight. The older woman looked up as Maya entered. "Did you enjoy your dinner?" "Yes, thank you." "Met Dr. Chen. She seems nice." "Dr. Chen is persistent, I'll give her that. Still trying to unlock the forest's secrets." Eleanor smiled faintly. "Some secrets are meant to remain buried, don't you think?" "I suppose that depends on the secret." "Indeed." Eleanor closed her book. Maya caught a glimpse of the title, something about local history. "Will you be going out later, Ms. Richardson? I locked the front door at 11 for security reasons, but I can provide you with a key if you need one." "No, I'll be staying in. Long drive today, I'm exhausted." "Of course, sleep well." "The old house creaks quite a bit at night, don't let it disturb you." In her room, Maya waited. She organized her notes, reviewed her father's research files, and watched the clock creep toward midnight. At 11:45, she grabbed the flashlight and her phone, then eased open her door. The hallway was dark, lit only by moonlight through a window at the far end. Maya moved carefully, avoiding the floorboards she'd noted earlier, the ones that groaned under weight. She made it down the first flight of stairs without incident, then froze on the second-floor landing. Voices drifted up from the first floor. Eleanor was speaking to someone, her tone low and urgent. "Don't like it. First Dr. Chen poking around. Now this writer. Too many questions, too close to the festival." "The keeper will handle it," a man's voice, gravelly and old. "The keeper always handles threats. Remember the reporter 15 years ago? Problem solved itself. That's what worries me." If this Richardson woman is Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, a notification from the spotty Wi-Fi catching a delayed email. In the silence of the old house, it sounded like a gunshot. The voices below ceased immediately. "Did you hear that?" Eleanor's voice sharp now. Maya didn't wait. She hurried down the remaining stairs, moving as quickly as silence would allow, and slipped out the back door that led to the kitchen. The cool night air hit her face as she pressed herself against the side of the house, heart hammering. No pursuit. No alarm raised. After a moment, she moved away from the Crane house, keeping to shadows until she reached Main Street. The town was transformed at night. Every storefront was dark, every window shuttered. The streetlights cast pools of yellow illumination that seemed to make the darkness beyond them even deeper. And over everything, the sound of the forest, not the peaceful rustling of leaves, but something more intentional, more conscious, like breathing. The library was housed in the old church, its Gothic architecture looming against the star-filled sky. Maya approached it carefully, noting that while the front was dark, a faint light showed through one of the rear windows. She circled around back, found a door slightly ajar, and slipped inside. The interior smelled of old paper, dust, and something else, something organic and faintly unpleasant, like rot carefully concealed. Maya clicked on her flashlight, keeping the beam low. "Over here." Dr. Chen's voice came from the back of the building, where a set of stairs descended into darkness. "But first turn off that light. Let your eyes adjust." Maya complied, and gradually she became aware of a faint green glow emanating from below. She descended the stairs carefully, finding herself in what had once been the church's crypt and was now the library's archive. Dr. Chen sat at a small table surrounded by filing boxes, ledgers, and what appeared to be very old books. The green glow came from several battery-powered lanterns she'd set up around the space. Green light doesn't travel as far, Dr. Chen explained. Less likely to be spotted from outside. I've been coming down here every few nights for the past month, ever since realized the real history of this town isn't in the sanitized records upstairs. What did you find? Everything. Dr. Chen gestured to the materials spread before her, or at least enough to understand what happened to your father and why. She pulled out a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. This is Thomas Blackwood's diary. He was one of the town's founders. The town is named after his daughter, Sarah, who was the first person to go into that forest and never come out. Maya's blue. Dear Ann Cold, my father heard someone calling his name from the forest. He said it sounded like me, like Sarah, his daughter. That's what it does. The keeper calls them using a name they love, a voice they trust. Dr. Chen opened the diary to a marked page. Read this. Maya took the diary, angling it toward the light. October 31st, 1843. Sarah is gone. My beautiful girl is gone. The thing we made a pact with took her into the oak tree, not around it, not behind it, but into it, as if the bark were water. I watched my daughter's face disappear into the wood, watched the tree swallow her smile, and I did nothing. We all did nothing. We stood there like cowards and let it happen because we were afraid. The keeper promised us prosperity, protection, safety from the harsh winter and harsher wilderness. 1 life per year, it said, 1 willing sacrifice on the night when the veil is thin. It seemed a small price for survival. But now, holding Sarah's empty shawl, smelling her perfume still clinging to the cloth, I know the truth. There is no small price when it comes to murder. Yet we will live with this. We will thrive because of this. We will build our houses on blood and call it progress. God forgive us. Sarah, forgive us. But this is the pact, and we cannot break it now. Maya looked up, her hands shaking. They've been doing this for over 180 years, sacrificing people to something in the forest, every year. Sometimes it's elderly or ill volunteers. Sometimes people grieving so deeply they welcome death. But I found something else, Maya, something worse. Dr. Chen pulled out a more recent ledger, marked with last year's date. Look at the pattern of deaths more carefully. Maya scanned the names, dates, causes listed as accidental death forest misadventure. Then she saw it. The volunteers, she said slowly. They're all natives, people born here, raised here, except for one night every 15 years or so. On those years, the death is always an outsider. Someone who came asking questions, someone who got too close to the truth. Dr. Chen met her eyes. Like your father. Like the researcher who disappeared in 1985. Like the state inspector who vanished in 2001. They fed him to it. Think so. Think when someone threatens to expose what's happening here, the entire town participates in ensuring that person becomes the next offering. They lure them into the forest somehow, and the keeper takes care of the rest. Maya felt sick. The whole town knows. They're all complicit, which means we're in danger. You especially, if they figure out why you're really here. Dr. Chen began returning materials to their boxes. I've been documenting everything, scanning pages, building a case, but I need more evidence before can take this to outside authorities. A sound from upstairs cut her off. Footsteps on the floorboards above, slow and deliberate. Someone's here, Maya whispered. Dr. Chen killed the green lights, plunging them into absolute darkness. The footsteps continued, moving through the library, pausing, moving again. Then a voice. Dr. Chen, I know you're down there. And Miss Richardson, yes, we know who you really are. You might as well come up. We need to have a conversation. It was Eleanor Crane's voice, calm and cold as winter. The back exit, Dr. Chen breathed in Maya's ear. Through the old coal chute. I found it last week. You found it because I wanted you to, Eleanor called down. Every exit is watched, ladies. Now please come upstairs. I promise we just want to talk. And if we don't? Maya called back, trying to keep her voice steady, a pause. Then you leave me no choice but to conclude that you're not here as friends, that you pose a threat, and threats are dealt with harshly in Blackwood. especially this close to the festival. Dr. Chen grabbed Maya's arm. We run. Now, don't look back. They bolted for the rear of the crypt. Maya's flashlight beam wild in the darkness as they searched for the coal chute Dr. Chen had mentioned. Behind them, multiple sets of footsteps descended the stairs, not just Eleanor but others. There. Dr. Chen yanked open a metal door, revealing a narrow shaft angling upward. Go! Maya scrambled into the chute, her shoulders scraping against brick as she climbed. Behind her, Dr. Chen followed, and behind her the sounds of pursuit. Hands grabbed at Dr. Chen's ankle. Keep going, Dr. Chen shouted, kicking back hard. There was a grunt of pain, a curse in Eleanor's voice. Maya emerged into cold night air behind the library, in a small space between buildings. She turned to help Dr. Chen up, but the botanist was struggling, someone still gripping her leg from below. Let go of me. Dr. Chen kicked again and finally broke free, tumbling out of the chute. Run, get back to the Crane house, pack your things and leave this town. I'm not leaving without your father's dead, Maya. Accept it. This town killed him and they'll kill us too if we Dr. Chen's words cut off, as figures emerged from both ends of the alley. 6, 7, maybe more. Maya couldn't count them in the darkness. They moved with eerie synchronization, like a flock of birds responding to some unseen signal. Eleanor Crane stepped out of the coal chute, her dress somehow immaculate despite the climb. You've made this very difficult, ladies. We really did just want to talk. Bullshit, Dr. Chen spat. You wanted to find out how much we know. Well, now we know you know everything. Eleanor's smile was terrible in the moonlight, which means we have decisions to make. You see, the festival is in 11 days. The keeper must be fed as it has been for 182 years. Usually we have a volunteer, someone old or sick or tired of life. But this year, she looked directly at Maya, this year we have a journalist's daughter who came looking for answers. Rather poetic, don't you think? You're insane, Maya breathed. All of you. This entire town is alive because of the pact, prosperous, protected. We pay a small price for great benefit. One life saves 346 others. The math is simple. Eleanor took a step forward. So your father understood at the end. When the keeper called his name, when it used your voice to draw him in, he went willingly. He died thinking he was saving you. Maya's vision blurred with tears and rage. You murdered him. The keeper claimed him. There's a difference. Eleanor's voice was almost gentle. And now, Maya Vance, you have two choices. You can leave at dawn, forget everything you've learned and live your life elsewhere. Or you can stay, continue asking questions, and discover firsthand what happens to those who threaten the pact. You mean you'll murder us too? I mean the keeper will call your names on October 31st and you will answer. Everyone answers in the end. Eleanor looked at Dr. Chen. Even those who think themselves immune to the forest's call. Dr. Chen's face had gone pale. You can't. There are laws. People who know where we are there. You've been living out of a motel 30 miles away, telling no one your specific locations, and Maya used her mother's name to book her room. No one knows you're here. No one is coming to save you. Eleanor's smile widened. But this can still end peacefully. Leave at dawn, both of you. Never come back. Never speak of what you learned here, and the keeper will not call your names. This is the best offer you're going to get. The figures surrounding them pressed closer. Maya could see their faces now in the moonlight. The old man from the diner, the nervous clerk from the general store, Cassie, the waitress, and others she didn't recognize. The entire town, it seemed, united in protecting their terrible secret. We need time to think, Dr. Chen said. You have until dawn. If you're still here when the sun rises, we'll assume you've made your choice. Eleanor turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and don't bother trying to call for help. Cell service is spotty here, and the internet. Well, let's just say that accidents happen to satellite connections. Especially when we need them to. The crowd melted away into the darkness, leaving Maya and Dr. Chen alone in the alley. We have to run, Dr. Chen said immediately. Get in our cars and drive until we hit the next town with cell service. Call the police. They'll stop us. You saw how organized they are. Then we hide until dawn and sneak out. They'll be watching every road. Dr. Chen grabbed Maya's shoulders. Then what do you suggest? Because I don't plan on becoming some forest monster's next meal. Maya's mind raced. Her father had come here seeking truth and found death. She'd come seeking answers and found only madness. But she'd also found something else. Thomas Blackwood's diary, with its mention of regret, of a mistake that could be undone. Dr. Chen, in that diary, Thomas Blackwood said the price was too high. That someone needed to break the pact. It's been 182 years, Maya. If there was a way to break it, don't you think someone would have tried? Maybe they did. Maybe that's what my father was trying to do when he disappeared. Maya met Dr. Chen's eyes. His recorder caught him hearing my voice from the forest. But what if he wasn't confused? What if he went in there deliberately, trying to find a way to end this? That's a huge assumption based on the fact that my father was brilliant and brave and dedicated to exposing corruption. He wouldn't have given up. He would have fought until his last breath. Maya felt certainty crystallizing. I'm not leaving. Not until I know the truth about what happened to him, and not until I find a way to break this pact. They'll kill you, then they'll kill me. But I'm not running. Dr. Chen stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. You're as stubborn as your father was. He said that to me, you know. Maya blinked. What? The night before he disappeared. I was here doing preliminary research, staying at the Crane House. We had dinner together, talked about what he was investigating. He said, my daughter has my stubbornness. God help her, but maybe that's what this world needs, people too stubborn to accept evil as inevitable. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. I thought he was just being maudlin. I didn't know I'd be quoting him 15 years later to his daughter. You knew my father? Barely. Just that one night. But he made an impression. And when he disappeared, left town immediately, because was smart enough to know I was in over my head. She laughed bitterly. Guess didn't learn my lesson. When the university gave me this assignment, some part of me wanted to come back to understand what really happened here. Now you know. Now we both know. Which means we have 11 days to figure out how to stop it. Dr. Chen pulled out her phone. No service, as expected, but I have all my scans and photos backed up on a cloud drive. If something happens to us, there's at least evidence. Evidence no one will believe, maybe, maybe not. But it's better than nothing. She pocketed her phone. Okay, Maya Vance. If we're doing this insane thing, we need a plan. First priority, get copies of Thomas Blackwood's diary and anything else that might explain how the pact was made. If we know how it started, maybe we can figure out how to end it. Second priority, find out what happened to my father. His recorder, his notes, anything he might have hidden before they caught him. Third priority, survive until Halloween. Dr. Chen's expression was grim, because I have a feeling that's when this all comes to a head. They made their way back toward the Crane House separately, taking different routes, watching for observers. Maya's mind whirled with everything she'd learned. Her father hadn't died in some random accident or moment of confusion. He'd been murdered by an entire town working together to protect their dark bargain. And now she was caught in the same trap, with the same people hunting her, and only 11 days to uncover the truth. As she slipped back into the Crane House through that same kitchen door unlocked now, almost as if someone wanted her to think she'd gotten away, Maya paused in the hallway. She could feel eyes watching her from the darkness, could sense the presence of someone else in the house. I know you're there, she said quietly. A match flared in the parlor, illuminating Eleanor Crane's face as she lit a candle. Of course you do. You're your father's daughter, after all. Did he die quickly, at least? Or did you make him suffer? I didn't make him do anything. The keeper called him, and he answered, just as it will call you if you don't leave. Eleanor's voice held genuine regret. I liked your father, Maya. He was kind, intelligent, passionate about justice. I genuinely hoped he would accept the truth and leave. But he couldn't let it go. Just like you can't. He was murdered. That's not a truth to accept, it's a crime to expose. To you, perhaps. To us, it's survival. The math is simple. One death prevents hundreds. Break the pact, and the keeper takes everyone. Every man, woman, and child in Blackwood. That's what it promised in the beginning, and that's what it will do if we fail to feed it. Eleanor blew out the candle, returning the parlor to darkness. So yes, we protect the pact. We protect our families, our home, our lives, and we eliminate threats to that protection. It's not personal, Maya, it's just necessary. Everything is personal to someone. Yes, it is. A pause. Dawn is in 6 hours. Suggest you use them to pack and prepare to leave. Because if you're still here when the sun rises, I'll have no choice but to conclude you've chosen death. Maybe death chose me. Then may you meet it with more grace than your father did. Eleanor's footsteps receded deeper into the house. He screamed at the end, you know. screamed for you, for your mother, for anyone to help him. But in the forest, no one hears you scream. The trees swallow sound along with everything else. Maya waited until she was certain Eleanor was gone, then climbed the stairs to her room. Her hands shook as she locked the door, knowing the lock meant nothing, knowing Eleanor probably had keys to every room. She pulled out her father's photograph again, studying his face in the dim light. He'd died screaming, terrified, alone, and these people spoke of it as if it were merely regrettable, merely necessary. "I'm going to finish what you started," Maya whispered to the photograph. "I promise, Dad, I'm going to end this, or die trying." From somewhere in the distance, carried on the night wind, came a sound that might have been laughter, or might have been the rustling of leaves. The forest was listening, and somewhere in its dark heart, the keeper waited. Maya didn't sleep. She spent the hours until dawn organizing her father's research, cross-referencing it with everything she'd learned from Dr. Chen and Thomas Blackwood's diary. Patterns emerged in the darkness, connections between the town's founding families, the cycle of sacrifices, and curious gaps in the historical record. Every 15 years, like clockwork, the October 31st death was an outsider. But between those years, the sacrifices came from within. Volunteers whose names were recorded in the town records with a small symbol beside them, a circle bisected by a vertical line, like a tree seen from above, the keeper's mark. At 5:47 a.m., as the sky began to lighten from black to deep purple, someone knocked on her door. "Maya," Dr. Chen's voice urgent and low. "Let me in, quickly." Maya unlocked the door. Dr. Chen slipped inside, her clothes disheveled, a thin cut across her cheek. She carried a leather satchel that Maya recognized. It had been in the library archives. "What happened?" "I went back to the library after we split up. Figured if they were going to kill me anyway, might as well gather every piece of evidence could." Dr. Chen dumped the satchel's contents onto Maya's bed. "Found something big." Among the papers and books, one item stood out. A large leather-bound tome with no title. Its cover marked with the same symbol Maya had been studying, the keeper's mark. "This was hidden in a false panel in the archive wall," Dr. Chen explained. "I think it's the town's real record. The one they keep for themselves, not for outsiders." Maya opened it carefully. The pages were filled with handwritten entries dating back to 1843. But unlike the sanitized official records, these were brutally honest. November 1st, 1843, Sarah Blackwood, age 17, called and claimed. Her father, Thomas, pleaded with the keeper for her return. The keeper laughed and said the pact was sealed in blood and sacrifice. Thomas attempted to enter the forest to retrieve his daughter. We restrained him. By morning, the oak tree where Sarah had been taken bore leaves of the most vibrant green, though it was autumn. The keeper was pleased. November 1st, 1844. Margaret Winters, age 64, volunteered for the calling, went peacefully. Her family found her shawl at the forest edge the next morning, neatly folded, smelling of earth and decay. The town's harvest that year exceeded all expectations. November 1st, 1858. No volunteer came forward. By sunset, 3 children had vanished from their homes. We found them at the forest edge, walking hand in hand toward the trees, their eyes vacant. We restrained them, but Joshua Harper, age 42, threw himself into the forest to take their place. The keeper accepted the exchange. The children remembered nothing. Joshua was never seen again. Entry after entry, year after year. Deaths documented with clinical precision. The town's prosperity charted alongside the sacrifices. But interspersed among them were other notations, attempts to break the pact and their consequences. November 1st, 1867, Thomas Blackwood died this day, still seeking to free his daughter's soul. His grandson, Marcus, attempted to cut down the oak with an axe. The moment the blade touched bark, Marcus began to scream. He cut at his own wrists, saying he could hear Sarah begging him to join her. We stopped him before he bled out, but his mind was gone. He now resides in the root cellar beneath the church, fed and cared for but unable to speak or think. A reminder, the keeper does not tolerate defiance. Maya felt sick. They kept him in the cellar. Keep reading. November 1st, 1901. Father Michael O'Brien, new to our parish, discovered the truth of the pact. He attempted to perform an exorcism on the forest. The following morning we found him crucified on the oak tree, Thorns grown through his palms and feet, still alive but unable to speak. His eyes moved, watching us. He died 3 days later. The keeper left his body displayed as warning for a full month, before the tree absorbed him completely. November 1st, 1923. Prohibition agent. Samuel Cross came investigating rumors of illegal distilling in the forest. We tried to dissuade him. He insisted on entering after dark. We let him. His screaming lasted until dawn. When we searched, we found only his badge, melted and twisted, hanging from a low branch like an ornament. They've tried to fight it, Maya said, multiple times over the decades. It's killed everyone who attempted it. But look at this. Dr. Chen pointed to an entry from 40 years ago. This one's different. November 1st, 1985. Dr. Patricia Morrison, ethnobotanist from the State University, spent 6 months studying the forest ecosystem. She claimed to have identified the oak as Quercus keeper, a species unknown to science, possibly predating human habitation of the continent. She theorized the tree was not supernatural, but a symbiotic organism feeding on human biochemistry. She entered the forest on October 31st at 11:47 p.m., carrying equipment to take bark samples. She did not return, but her research notes found in her motel room suggest a possible mechanism. The tree's root system extends beneath the entire town, creating a network that responds to specific biochi. Chemical markers in human tissue. She proposed that regular sacrifice feeds this system, keeping it dormant. Deprivation might not kill the tree, but could trigger aggressive expansion. Conclusion: Dr. Morrison may have been close to understanding the keeper's true nature. Her disappearance was regrettable, but necessary. My father mentioned Dr. Morrison in his notes, Maya said, pulling out one of Jonathan's research files. He tried to track down her research but couldn't find it. Now we know why the town has it, which means there might be a scientific explanation for all this, not supernatural but biological. Dr. Chen's eyes lit with academic excitement despite the circumstances. If the keeper is actually some kind of organism, possibly fungal or something entirely novel, then it can be studied, understood and killed. Maybe. If we can figure out what it is, how it functions, we might find a vulnerability. She pulled out several folded papers from her jacket, took photos of Dr. Morrison's notes before they caught me. Look at this diagram. The sketch showed the town of Blackwood from above, with lines radiating from a central point, the ancient oak extending beneath every building, every street, every home. The root system wasn't just extensive, it was comprehensive. The entire town sat atop the keeper's body. We're not living beside the forest, Maya breathed. We're living inside it. Exactly. Dr. Morrison theorized that the annual sacrifice isn't mystical, it's feeding. The keeper draws nutrients from human tissue, possibly specific compounds produced by stress, fear, or other psychological states. The calling people hear might be infrasound or pheromones triggering deep psychological responses. But that doesn't explain how it knows names, how it mimics voices, doesn't it? Consider, the root system connects beneath the entire town. What if it's been absorbing information from the residents for 182 years? Memories, thoughts, neural patterns leaching into the ground through decomposition, through direct contact, through God knows what mechanism. It could have a vast library of human experiences to draw from. Maya thought of her father's recorder, his voice saying he heard her calling. So when it called my father using my voice, it was using information it had absorbed from other townsfolk who knew him, knew me. Possibly. Or it absorbed the information directly from your father, during his time here, his memories of you, the sound of your voice as he remembered it. The mechanism doesn't have to be supernatural to be horrifying. But if it's biological, Maya said slowly, then it can die. If we cut off its food source, if we damage enough of its root structure, we'd need to evacuate the town first. If Dr. Morrison's theory about aggressive expansion is correct, starving it could trigger something catastrophic. It might start taking multiple victims, or a creak from the hallway cut her off. Both women froze, listening. Footsteps passed by Maya's door, paused, then continued on. Eleanor making her morning rounds. We need to leave, Dr. Chen whispered. The sun's up. If we stay, I can't leave. Not when we're this close. Maya gathered up the papers, stuffing them into her bag. But you should go. Get this evidence somewhere safe, contact authorities, and tell them what? That a small town feeds people to a sentient tree. They'll think I'm insane. Then contact the university, other scientists, someone who might actually investigate Maya. I can't leave you here alone. You have to. One of us needs to survive to tell this story. To stop it from happening again. Maya pressed Dr. Morrison's research notes into Dr. Chen's hands. Please, my father died for this. Don't let his death be meaningless. Dr. Chen's eyes shone with tears. What are you going to do? Find out what really happened to him. And then... Maya looked toward her window, toward the forest visible in the growing light. Then I'm going into those trees and I'm going to kill that thing. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's my choice. Maya managed a smile. Besides, I have 11 days. A lot can happen in 11 days. A knock on the door made them both jump. Eleanor's voice, cold and precise. Ms. Richardson, checkout time is now. I trust you've made your decision. Maya opened the door. Eleanor stood in the hallway, immaculately dressed as always, but flanked by two large men Maya recognized from the diner, the town's unofficial enforcers, she guessed. Dr. Chen is leaving, Maya said. I'm staying. Eleanor's expression didn't change. I see. Dr. Chen, your belongings have been packed and placed in your vehicle. I've taken the liberty of settling your bill. I suggest you leave immediately. I'm not going without... Yes, you are. Eleanor's voice carried steel now. The pact requires 1 sacrifice per year, Dr. Chen, not 2. If you leave now, you leave safely. Stay and you guarantee both your death and Maya's. Is that what you want? Dr. Chen looked at Maya, who nodded slightly. They both understood. Dr. Chen's survival was the only hope of exposing Blackwood's secrets to the outside world. I'll come back, Dr. Chen said. With help, with authorities, no one will believe you. No one ever does, Eleanor smiled. But you're welcome to try. Now go before I change my mind about letting you leave. Dr. Chen embraced Maya briefly. Your father was brave. Be smarter than he was. I'll try. After Dr. Chen left, escorted by the 2 men to ensure she actually departed, Eleanor turned to Maya. Well then, since you're staying, let's discuss terms. You have 11 days until the festival. During that time, you're free to explore the town, speak with residents, even visit the forest edge. But you will not attempt to leave, you will not attempt to contact outside authorities, and you will not interfere with the festival preparations. And if I do, then the keeper takes you early. We've managed that before when necessary. An accident during the festival preparations. Tragic but not unprecedented. Eleanor's gaze was steady. The choice is yours, Maya. You can spend your remaining days seeking futile answers, or you can accept the inevitable with grace. Either way, on October 31st at midnight, the keeper will call your name. And you will answer. We'll see about that. Eleanor laughed, a genuine, almost fond sound. Your father said the same thing. Right up until the end. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry. You seem like a good person, but good people die every day and Blackwood survives. That's simply how the world works. Alone in her room, Maya pulled out her father's recorder. She'd found it among his effects, returned to her mother years ago by the Blackwood Sheriff's Department. The device was old now, still containing that final recording on its miniature cassette tape. She'd listened to it only once before, unable to bear hearing her father's voice calling her name, believing she was there in the forest with him. Now, with Dr. Chen's theory in mind, she listened again. This time she heard something she'd missed before. Underneath her father's voice, underneath the forest sounds, there was a rhythm, a pulse, like a heartbeat, but slower, deeper, emanating from the earth itself. And then, just before the recording ended, a voice that wasn't her father's, speaking words in a language that predated English, predated any modern tongue. Sudan sianatame agyared, tarengt to stich. Tarengt doimhin. Na ligiadh do imacht. Maya didn't speak Irish, but the internet still worked barely. She typed the phrase into a translation app, waiting while the satellite connection struggled. The translation appeared. This one I want. Draw him in. Draw him deep. Don't let him leave. So the keeper hadn't just called her father. It had claimed him deliberately, specifically. Why? Maya reviewed her father's final notes, the ones he'd typed into his laptop and backed up to a cloud service before disappearing. Most were observations about the town, interviews with reticent residents, historical data. But his last entry, dated October 25th at 4:33 p.m., was different. Found something incredible in the town record's actual genealogies going back to the founding. Traced several families, and there's a pattern I didn't expect. The town's population has remained remarkably stable over 180 plus years, but not because of immigration. The same family names appear generation after generation, with very little genetic diversity introduced. It's like they've been deliberately isolating themselves, keeping the bloodlines closed. More intriguing, every person who's been called by the forest every sacrifice shares DNA with at least one of the original founding families. It's not random selection. The Keeper specifically targets descendants of the original pact makers. Like it's slowly consuming the very families who created it. Tomorrow I meet with my source, a Blackwood descendant, who claims to have documents proving the pact can be broken. If this is true, if there's a way to free this town from the nightmare it's trapped in, it could be the biggest story of my career. But more than that, it would save lives. Hundreds of future victims. That matters more than any byline. Note to self. If anything happens to me, if I don't make it back, someone needs to finish this. The key is in the bloodlines. The Keeper feeds on its own children, the descendants of those who created it. Break that connection and maybe you break the pact. Maya sat back, her mind racing. Her father had figured out something crucial. The sacrifices weren't random, and the Keeper wasn't an impartial entity demanding tribute. It was specifically, systematically, consuming the bloodlines of those who had bound it, including her father, whose maternal grandmother had been a Blackwood, a fact Maya had never known until she'd found his genealogical research. Through that connection, tenuous as it was, Jonathan Vance had been marked as legitimate prey, and Maya, as his daughter, inherited that mark. She was part of the Keeper's harvest, part of its food source. The town hadn't just tolerating her father's death, they'd probably facilitated it, ensuring the Keeper got its tribute from the bloodline it craved. A terrible thought struck her. What if the entire pattern of outsiders being called every 15 years wasn't coincidence? What if the town specifically lured in descendants who'd left, moved away, diluted their Blackwood blood through marriages to outsiders? What if they were drawing back the scattered bloodline, ensuring the Keeper could feed on all its children eventually? She needed more information. She needed to understand the original pact, not the sanitized version in Thomas Blackwood's diary, but the actual words spoken, the actual terms agreed upon. And she knew exactly where to find that information. In the forest itself, far at the ancient oak where Sarah Blackwood had been taken. Eleanor had said Maya was free to visit the forest edge. She hadn't said anything about going deeper. Maya packed her bag, flashlight, recorder, her father's notes, a knife from the kitchen she'd pocketed earlier, useless against something like the Keeper, but it made her feel better, and her phone with its nearly dead battery and lack of service. She left the Crane house through the front door this time, not bothering with stealth. If they wanted to stop her, they'd stop her. But something told her they wouldn't, not yet. Eleanor had seemed almost eager for Maya to seek futile answers. Maybe the town wanted her to understand, wanted her to know exactly what fate awaited her. Or maybe, after 182 years, they were arrogant enough to believe nothing could threaten their arrangement. The walk to the forest took 20 minutes. Main Street gave way to residential areas, which thinned to scattered farmhouses, which finally yielded to the tree line. A wooden sign marked the official entrance to the forest preserve. Blackwood Forest Est, 1843, no entry after dark, violators will be prosecuted. Someone had added a graffiti postscript in white paint. The trees are hungry. The trail was well maintained, clearly used by hikers and locals. Maya followed it into the trees, noting how quickly the forest closed around her. The temperature dropped 10 degrees within 50 yards of the road, and the light dimmed, as if the canopy above was thicker than mere leaves could account for. The silence was absolute. No birdsong, no insects, no rustling of small animals, just the sound of her own breathing and footsteps. The trail forked. The right path, according to a weather-beaten sign, led to Overlook Point 2.3 miles. The left path had no sign, just an old marker carved with that familiar symbol, the Keeper's mark. Maya went left. The path narrowed, becoming less maintained, more overgrown. Roots crossed the trail like grasping fingers, and twice Maya had to duck under low branches, that seemed to have grown across the path deliberately, forming barriers. She'd been walking for perhaps 15 minutes when she saw it. Ahead, a clearing where the trees opened up around a single massive oak. The tree defied description. Its trunk was easily 30 feet in diameter, its bark dark as old blood, its branches spreading out like a network of veins against the sky. The ground around it was bare dirt, no grass, no undergrowth, nothing growing within 50 feet of its trunk, and carved into that bark, covering every visible surface, were names. Hundreds of names, thousands perhaps, carved in various hands over nearly 2 centuries. Sarah Blackwood, 1843 Margaret Winters, 1844. Joshua Harper, 1858 Father Michael O'Brien, 1901. Samuel Cross, 1923. On and on, a litany of the dead, the taken, the consumed. Maya approached carefully, her hand trailing over the carved names. The bark was warm under her fingers, almost feverish, and beneath that warmth she felt it. A pulse, a heartbeat. The tree was alive in ways that had nothing to do with ordinary biology. She found her father's name easily. It was larger than most, carved deeper, as if the tree itself had wanted to ensure it stood out. Jonathan Vance, 2010, below it, in fresher carving that looked only days old. Another name, Maya Vance, 2025. Her hand shook as she touched the letters of her own name. They were warm, warmer than the surrounding bark, as if they'd been recently used, recently claimed. Hello, Maya. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, from the tree, from the ground, from inside her own head. It sounded like her father, exactly like her father in a way no recording could capture. The timbre, the slight roughness from years of coffee and cigarettes, the precise inflection he'd used when proud of her. "You're not my father," Maya said, forcing her voice steady. "No," the voice agreed, shifting now, becoming feminine, ancient, speaking with dozens of tones layered over each other like a chorus. "But I know him. I consumed him, learned him, became him. I carry his memories, his love for you, his final thoughts. Would you like to hear them?" "No, liar." The voice was almost playful. "You came here seeking truth. Let me give it to you. Your father died calling your name, yes, but not from fear, from love. He thought in those final moments that if he gave himself willingly, if he proved himself worthy, I might spare you. He thought his sacrifice might break the cycle. Did it? What do you think?" Laughter, like wind through dead leaves. "The cycle is eternal, Maya. It existed before your species stood upright, and it will exist long after your kind has turned to dust. I am old, older than your civilization, older than your oldest myths. I was here when the ice retreated, when the first humans crossed into this land. I have always been hungry. I will always be hungry." Maya pulled out her knife, knowing how futile it was. "You're just a tree. A very old, very strange tree, but still just biology. You can be killed. Can I?" The bark beneath her hand grew hot, and Maya jerked back. "I span beneath this entire valley. My roots touch every home, every well, every grave. I taste the chemicals in their water, the nutrients from their buried dead. I am interwoven with this place so completely that to kill me would be to destroy the town itself." The founders understood this eventually. They thought they were making a bargain with a spirit. They were actually making a bargain with the land itself. With me. Then why the sacrifices? Why take people at all if you can feed on the dead, on the water supply? "Because I can." The voice was simple, honest in its cruelty. "Because the living fear me, and that fear is delicious. Because your species made a promise, and I enjoy holding you to it. Because after 182 years this is tradition, and even I appreciate tradition. You're a monster. I am nature. Amoral, inevitable, hungry. No better or worse than the fungi that consume rotting wood, the predators that cull the weak from the herd. Serve a function in this ecosystem. Keep the human population stable, prevent overgrowth and expansion that would damage the forest. Some balance, Maya. Perfect, terrible balance." Maya's recorder was running, capturing this entire conversation. Evidence, if it mattered. "My father thought he could break the pact. Dr. Morrison thought she could understand you. Were they wrong?" "No." The admission surprised her. "They were very close to success. Your father found the original terms, the exact words spoken by Reverend Crane. He learned that the pact included a termination clause, a way to end the agreement if certain conditions were met. That's why I killed him, not because the town demanded it, though they were complicit." I killed him because he was a genuine threat. What conditions? Why would I tell you that? Because you're arrogant. Because you've been the apex predator here for so long that you've forgotten how to be afraid. Because you think I can't possibly hurt you. Maya took a step closer to the trunk, meeting her own reflection in the polished bark. But I'm my father's daughter, and I'm going to finish what he started. The tree was silent for a long moment. Then, incredibly, it laughed a sound like breaking branches, like falling timber. Very well. I'll tell you because it won't matter. The pact can be broken if 3 conditions are met. First, a direct descendant of Reverend Elias Crane must willingly denounce the pact. Second, the breaking must occur on All Hallows Eve, at the moment between midnight and 12:01. Third, and most important, someone must enter my heart, the hollow space within my trunk, and destroy what lies there. What lies there? The original offering. Sarah Blackwood. The voice turned cold. Her body never decomposed. Preserved her, changed her, made her part of myself. She is the anchor that holds the pact in place. Destroy her remains and the connection breaks. The town goes free. I starve. Eventually I die. Maya's heart raced. So it is possible, theoretically. But no one has ever reached my heart. Those who enter my trunk find themselves lost in passages that shift and change, corridors that lead only deeper into darkness. And in that darkness I whisper to them. I show them things. I break them. The voice became her father's again. Your father made it deeper than most. Would you like to know what I showed him before he died? No. I showed him you. Created a perfect illusion of his 5-year-old daughter, lost and crying in the dark. I made him believe he could save you if he just went a little deeper, just a little further. He followed that illusion for hours, calling your name, begging you to wait for him. When he finally understood it was a trick, when he realized he'd been going deeper instead of escaping, his mind shattered. He died mad, Maya. Died knowing he'd failed you. Maya's vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. You're trying to break me like you broke him. I'm simple. Telling you what awaits. You have 11 days. Spend them wisely. Learn what you need to learn. Gather your courage. But when Halloween comes, when I call your name, you will answer. They always do. We'll see. Yes, yes, we will. The voice faded, becoming wind, becoming nothing. I look forward to knowing you, Maya Vance. You taste of grief and determination, a delicious combination. Your father was appetizing. You will be exquisite. The sense of presence withdrew, leaving Maya alone with the ancient oak and its cargo of names. She stood there for a long moment, her hand still touching her own carved name, feeling the warmth beneath her fingers. Then she pulled out her knife and carved new words beneath her name. Not yet. It was a small act of defiance, probably meaningless. But it made her feel better. As Maya turned to leave the clearing, she noticed something she'd missed before, a narrow opening in the trunk, barely visible in the shadows. The entrance to the tree's interior, the path to its heart, the path her father had taken. She approached it slowly, peering into darkness that seemed absolute, pressing against her eyes like a physical weight. The smell that emerged was organic and sweet, like decay masked by flowers. Not today, she whispered. But soon she had 11 days to prepare, 11 days to find a descendant of Elias Crane, willing to denounce the pact, 11 days to learn how to navigate the tree's shifting interior without losing her mind, 11 days to succeed where her father had failed. As Maya walked back toward town, she became aware of someone following her. Not trying to hide, not threatening, just maintaining a steady distance behind her on the trail. She stopped and turned. A young man, probably 17 or 18, stood about 20 yards back. He had pale skin, dark hair, and eyes that seemed older than his years. "You're Maya Vance," he said. "Not a question." "And you are?" "Lucas Crane, Eleanor's grandson." He moved closer, and Maya saw he was carrying a backpack, old and worn. "I've been waiting for you to come. My grandmother said you would, eventually. That you wouldn't be able to resist. If you're here to threaten me, I'm here to help you." Lucas pulled a thick envelope from his backpack. "My great-great-great whatever grandfather was Elias Crane, the man who made the pact. And I'm going to help you break it." Maya stared at him. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of living in a town that feeds people to a tree. Because my little sister's name is going to be carved into that oak someday, and I can't let that happen. Because—" He met her eyes, and she saw genuine pain there. Because my grandmother made me watch when they took your father. Was 3 years old, and she wanted me to understand the price of defiance. I've had nightmares about his screaming every night for 15 years. I need it to stop. You were there, the whole town was there. We always are for the outsiders. They make it a lesson. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Maya, for what they did to him, for what they're planning to do to you. Maya's distrust warred with desperate hope. Could this be real? Could she truly have found an ally? Someone willing to turn against their own family? Or was this another trap? Another way for the town to control her, to learn what she knew? Lucas seemed to sense her suspicion. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I brought proof. He held out the envelope. Everything my grandmother's been hiding from you. Elias Crane's original journal, including the exact words of the pact. The town's real genealogical records, showing which families are most connected to the Keeper, and... He hesitated. Your father's last letter, the one he wrote the night before he disappeared, and my grandmother intercepted. He addressed it to you. With shaking hands, Maya took the envelope. Inside, among other documents, was a letter in her father's distinctive handwriting. My dearest Sarah, he'd called her Sarah. His nickname for her, after the great-grandmother she was named for. If you're reading this, then I didn't make it out of Blackwood. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. I thought I was being careful, thought I was smarter than they were. I was wrong, but I found something, Sarah, something important. There's a way to break the pact, to free this town from the nightmare it's trapped in. I can't do it alone, don't have the right bloodline, but someone could. Someone like Lucas Crane, Elias's descendant. Plan to find Lucas tomorrow, to convince him to help. But if I don't get the chance, if something happens to me, then maybe someday you'll finish what I started. You're brave, Sarah, braver than you know, and stubborn, God help us, just like your old man. The key is in the first offering. Sarah Blackwood is still alive inside the tree in some form. The Keeper preserves its first victim, uses her as an anchor. Break that anchor, destroy her remains, and the pact dissolves. But you need 3 things: a Crane descendant to make the denouncement, the exact moment between midnight and 12:01 on Halloween, and the courage to go into that tree and come back out. Don't know if I'll have that courage, but if you're reading this, then you already know I didn't. So please, Sarah, don't come looking for me. Don't try to finish this. Live your life, be happy. Forget about Blackwood and its horrors. But if you're your father's daughter, and know you are, then you're already planning how to do exactly what I'm telling you not to. So if you must, be smart, be brave. And remember, I love you. Your mother loves you. Whatever happens, we're proud of you. Finish it, Sarah, end this cycle. Say future victims from the fate couldn't escape. All my love. Dad Maya's tears finally fell, dripping onto the paper, smudging the ink. Her father had known. He'd known he might die, and he'd written to her anyway, given her the tools she'd need to succeed where he failed. He trusted me, she whispered to Lucas. He believed I could do this. Can you? Maya wiped her eyes and looked back toward the forest, toward the ancient oak with its cargo of names and horrors. Her name was already carved there, waiting. The Keeper expected her to answer its call, expected her to break like all the others. But she was Jonathan Vance's daughter, and she was going to prove that some promises were meant to be broken. Yes, she said. We can. She met Lucas's eyes. Are you sure about this? If we fail, the Keeper will take both of us. Then we don't fail. Lucas's expression was fierce, determined. I've spent my whole life watching my family trade lives for prosperity. It ends now. On Halloween we break the pact or we die trying. Then we have 11 days to prepare. Maya tucked the letter carefully into her jacket. Tell me everything you know about the tree's interior, about the defenses, about how to survive entering the Keeper's heart. There's someone who can help with that, Lucas said. Someone who went into the tree and came back. It's never happened before or since, but she survived. She's old now, barely lucid most of the time, but on good days she remembers. Who? My great-great-aunt, Rebecca Crane. She entered the tree in 1952, trying to save her fiancé, who'd been called. She was inside for 2 days. When she came out, her hair was white and her mind was shattered. But sometimes when the mood is right, she talks about what she saw in there. Will she talk to me? I think so. She asks about you sometimes, about the journalist's daughter. It's like she's been waiting for you. Lucas started walking, gesturing for Maya to follow. Come on. We have a lot of work to do and not much time. If we're going to kill an ancient evil tree spirit, We're going to need a better plan than stab it with a knife. I have a recorder with the Keeper's own confession on it. That's something. It's a start. But we need more. We need to understand the tree's biology, its vulnerabilities, exactly how it maintains control over its victims. Lucas glanced back at her. Dr. Morrison's notes. Dr. Chen took them, but did she leave copies? I photographed the important pages. Good. We combine her scientific approach with Rebecca's first-hand experience and your father's research. We might actually have a shot at this. He paused. I'm glad you're here, Maya. I know that sounds terrible given the circumstances, but I've been alone with this knowledge for years, unable to act, unable to help. Having an ally, it means everything. We're going to end this, Maya promised. For your sister, for all the future victims, for everyone who's died feeding this thing's hunger, and for my father, especially for my father. They walked back toward town together, two descendants of the original pact makers, united in their intention to destroy what their ancestors had created. Behind them, the forest whispered and watched. The Keeper was listening, and it was very interested in what they would do next. Lucas led Maya through Blackwood's residential streets, the houses growing older and more ornate as they moved away from Main Street's commercial center. The architecture here was Victorian at its most elaborate widow's walks, gingerbread trim, turrets and towers that served no practical purpose but aesthetic excess. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a museum, preserved but not lived in, a town that had stopped moving forward sometime in the 19th century and never quite recovered. Most of these houses are still occupied by descendants of the founding families, Lucas explained as they walked. Blackwood doesn't change much. People are born here, live here, die here. Outsiders almost never stay longer than a few weeks, except for Dr. Chen, who just left if my grandmother is to be believed. Lucas's expression was grim. They're good at driving away people who ask too many questions. Your father wasn't the first journalist to come here, just the first in 15 years. The others usually leave after a few days of stonewalling and veiled threats. What made my father different? He was persistent. And he had the Blackwood connection through his grandmother, even if he didn't know it at first. The Keeper could sense him, recognize him as legitimate prey. Lucas paused in front of a 3-story Victorian painted in fading yellows and grays. This is it. Fair warning, Rebecca has good days and bad days. On bad days, she doesn't recognize anyone, doesn't speak, just stares out the window at the forest. On good days, she screams. Lucas's voice was flat. Come on. The interior of the house was dim, curtains drawn despite the afternoon sun. An elderly woman sat in the foyer, a nurse or caretaker, Maya guessed, who barely glanced up from her magazine as they entered. She's in the sunroom, the woman said. Been agitated all morning. Keep saying someone's coming. That would be us, Lucas replied. This is Maya Richardson. I know who she is. The caretaker's eyes finally focused on Maya, sharp and assessing. Everyone in town knows by now. Eleanor made sure of it. The journalist's daughter, here to die like her father did. She stood, gathering her things. I'm going on break. You've got 30 minutes. Don't upset her more than she already is. After she left, Lucas led Maya through a maze of hallways to a glass-enclosed room at the back of the house. The sunroom overlooked a garden that had long since gone wild, and beyond it, of course, the forest. Rebecca Crane sat in a wheelchair by the window, a blanket across her lap despite the warmth. She was tiny, shrunken with age, her white hair pulled back in a braid. But her eyes, when they turned to regard Maya, were lucid and piercing. You came, Rebecca said, her voice surprisingly strong. I've been waiting for you. Ever since they took your father, I knew his daughter would come eventually. The pattern always repeats. Lucas pulled chairs close to Rebecca's wheelchair. Aunt Rebecca, this is Maya Vance. She needs to know about the tree, about what you saw inside it. I saw hell. Rebecca's gaze never left Maya's face. I saw the truth of what we created, what we perpetuate. And I saw why no one can escape once they enter its heart. But you escaped, Maya said. You're the only one who ever has, did I? Rebecca laughed, a sound like breaking glass. My body came out, yes. But parts of me stayed inside. Parts of me are still there even now, wandering those corridors, lost in the dark. She reached out and gripped Maya's hand with surprising strength. You want to go in there. You think you can destroy Sarah Blackwood's preserved body and break the pact. But child, you don't understand what you're facing. Then help me understand. Rebecca was silent for a long moment, staring out at the forest. When she finally spoke, her voice had a distant quality, as if she were reliving a memory rather than describing it. It was 1952. Was 22, engaged to be married to Thomas Morrison, Dr. Morrison's grandfather, in fact. Halloween came and the keeper called his name. We didn't understand why Thomas was healthy, young, happy. He had no reason to be chosen, but the keeper wanted him, and on Halloween night he walked into the forest. She paused, her hands trembling. Lucas squeezed her shoulder gently. I followed him. Against all warnings, against every prohibition, I went after him into the dark. Found him at the oak, standing before that opening in the trunk, listening to something I couldn't hear. I called to him, begged him to come back, but he just smiled at me and said, "I have to go." "It's calling me." Then he stepped into the tree and vanished. You went after him, Maya said. I didn't even hesitate. Loved him more than life itself. So I stepped through that opening and... Rebecca closed her eyes. Do you know what's worse than darkness? It's darkness that moves, that breathes, that whispers your name in voices you recognize. The interior of that tree isn't just wood and earth. It's a living maze, constantly shifting, powered by the keeper's consciousness. What did you see? Corridors made of bark and root. Passages that led up, down, sideways directions that shouldn't exist. Rooms that were larger than the tree's trunk could possibly contain. And everywhere, the names of the dead. Carved into every surface. Spoken by voices in the walls, written in light that had no source. Rebecca's breathing quickened. I walked for hours, maybe days. Time didn't work right in there. I followed Thomas's voice, always hearing him just around the next corner, just through the next passage. But I never found him. Instead, I found the others. Others? The taken. Everyone who'd been consumed over the decades. Not dead, the keeper doesn't let them die. It keeps them alive, trapped in the wood, feeding on their terror and despair. Saw Elias Crane, the man who made the original pact, crucified on the interior walls, still breathing after 109 years. Saw children who'd been taken generations ago, their bodies merged with the tree, their eyes still moving, still aware. Saw Father O'Brien, the priest who tried to exorcise the forest, his mouth open in a silent scream that had lasted 31 years. Maya felt sick. They're all still alive, not dead, preserved in eternal suffering, their consciousness absorbed into the keeper's network, their memories and fears and loves becoming part of its vast database of human experience. Rebecca opened her eyes, and Maya saw tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. That's why it can mimic voices so perfectly, why it knows exactly what to say to lure people in. It's not just observing from outside, it contains countless human minds, experiencing everything they've ever experienced, knowing everything they've ever known. Did you find Sarah Blackwood? I found her chamber, yes. The heart of the tree where the original offering is kept. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. It's a spherical room, maybe 20 feet in diameter, with walls made entirely of roots twisted together like veins. And in the center, suspended in the air by those roots, is Sarah. She's perfectly preserved, looking exactly as she did in 1843, 17 years old, beautiful, wearing her white dress. But her eyes are open, Maya. Her eyes are open and aware and full of such ancient sadness. Did you speak to her? She spoke to me. Her mouth didn't move, the roots had grown through her, holding her in place like a fly in a web. But I heard her voice in my mind. She said, "Help me, please, I've been awake for so long. Make it stop." Lucas leaned forward. "Could you free her? Cut the roots?" I tried. I had a knife for all the good it did. The moment touched the roots suspending her, every nerve in my body ignited with pain. It was like touching an electric fence amplified 1,000 times. Fell, and in that moment of weakness, the keeper showed me what would happen if I succeeded. What did it show you? The town. Blackwood, the roots beneath it becoming active, aggressive. They grew up through basements, through floors, through people's beds while they slept. Everyone knew and loved, impaled on roots, slowly absorbed into the network. The keeper's punishment for breaking the pact, the consumption of everyone. Rebecca wiped her eyes. It said, "Offer a choice, 1 life per year or all lives at once. If you destroy my anchor, if you free Sarah, I will take everyone. Every child, every elder, every innocent who never asked to be part of this arrangement. Is your love worth their deaths?" It was lying, Maya said, trying to stop you. Maybe or maybe not. I couldn't risk it, so ran. Found a passage that somehow led outside, or maybe the keeper let me go, don't know. Emerged from the tree 2 days after I'd entered, my mind shattered, my hair white, and Thomas gone forever. She looked directly at Maya. That's what awaits you in there. Not just the physical danger, but the psychological warfare. The keeper knows every human fear, every weakness, every doubt. It will use them all against you. Maya absorbed this, her earlier confidence crumbling. Then maybe it's impossible. Maybe my father was right to tell me not to try. Your father was a coward. The harsh words came from Rebecca, surprising both Maya and Lucas. No, let me finish. He was a coward who loved you very much. He came here, learned the truth, found the way to break the pact, and then hesitated. He wavered. And in that moment of uncertainty, the keeper struck. It lured him into the forest before he could act, before he could find Lucas and convince him to help. How do you know this? Because he came to see me. 3 days before he disappeared, your father sat where you're sitting now and asked me the same questions. I told him what I've told you about the tree's interior, about Sarah's chamber, about the terrible choice the keeper forced on me, and saw the moment when doubt entered his mind, when he started to question whether breaking the pact was worth the potential cost. He talked to the keeper, didn't he? Maya's voice was hollow. He went to the tree to negotiate, to find a better way, and the keeper, sensing his weakness, his uncertainty, struck immediately. It called him using your voice, played on his love for you, and consumed him before he could recover his resolve. Rebecca gripped Maya's hand again. Don't make his mistake. Don't go to that tree with doubt in your heart. If you're going to do this, if you're going to try what I failed to try, what your father failed to try, you must be absolutely certain. No hesitation, no mercy, no second thoughts. But what if the keeper's threat was real? What if destroying Sarah kills everyone in town? Then everyone dies free instead of living as slaves to an ancient evil. Rebecca's voice was hard now, unyielding. I've had 70 years to think, Abi. My choice to wonder if made the right decision, and I'll tell you what I've concluded was wrong. Should have freed Sarah. Should have risked everyone to break the cycle. Because every year, every sacrifice bear the guilt of every name carved into that tree after 1952 is my fault for not being brave enough. It's not your fault, Lucas said gently. The town chose this path long before you were born, but I could have ended it, and didn't. So now that responsibility falls to you, Maya. You and Lucas together, the journalist's daughter and the founder's descendant. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's why the pattern brought you both here now at this moment. Maya stood, pacing the sunroom, her mind churning. Let me make sure I understand. To break the pact, Lucas has to formally denounce it as Elias Crane's descendant. This has to happen between midnight and 12:01 on Halloween. And I have to be inside the tree's heart, destroying Sarah Blackwood's remains at the exact same moment. That's the theory based on the pact's terms, Lucas confirmed. The denouncement breaks the legal bond, so to speak. Destroying the anchor breaks the physical connection. Do both simultaneously, and the keeper can't maintain its hold. But we don't know if it'll actually work or if the keeper will retaliate by killing everyone. No, Rebecca admitted. We don't know. That's the gamble. But consider this. The keeper has been feeding on human suffering for nearly 2 centuries. It's powerful, yes, but that power comes from the pact, from the willing sacrifices. Break the pact, destroy its anchor, and you cut off its power source. It might not have the energy to follow through on its threats, or it might kill us all out of spite. Then you make sure everyone who can leave does so before Halloween, Rebecca said. Evacuate the town. Make up an excuse. Gas leak, chemical spill, something. Get everyone to safety first, then break the pact. Maya stopped pacing. That's actually brilliant. If people aren't here, the keeper can't kill them. It's rooted in this valley, it can't expand beyond its current range. Can't it? Lucas frowned. It's been here for thousands of years, maybe longer. Maybe it's already spread further than we know. Dr. Morrison's soil samples, Maya said, pulling out her phone to reference the photographs she'd taken. Dr. Chen showed me Morrison's survey maps. The keeper's root system extends exactly to Blackwood's town limits, and no further. It's contained by geography. There are rock formations around the valley that its roots can't penetrate. So if we evacuate the town, go through with the plan, and it works, the worst-case scenario is an empty town gets destroyed, and the best-case scenario is we free everyone, not just the future residents, but everyone trapped inside the tree. All those minds that have been absorbed over the decades. Maya felt hope kindle in her chest. My father might still be in there in some form. We could save him. Rebecca's expression was sad. Don't count on that, child. The people inside the tree aren't whole anymore. Even if you free them, what emerges might not be recognizably human. But there's a chance. There's always a chance. That's the blessing and curse of hope. Rebecca settled back in her wheelchair, suddenly looking exhausted. I've told you what now. The rest is up to you. But Maya, one more thing. The Keeper will know what you're planning. It's listening even now, through the roots beneath this house, through the air we breathe. It knows about Lucas helping you. It knows about the evacuation plan. And it will do everything in its power to stop you. Let it try, Maya's jaw set with determination. I'm my father's daughter. I don't give up. No, Rebecca said softly. I can see that. You have his eyes, his fire. I hope it's enough. She looked at Lucas. And you, boy, are you truly ready to betray your family? Because that's what they'll see it as, the ultimate betrayal. Your grandmother will never forgive you. My grandmother raised me to believe 1 life per year is acceptable mathematics. Disagree. Lucas's voice was steady. If this costs me my family, so be it. Some prices are worth paying. Then go, plan, prepare. You have... Rebecca glanced at the calendar on the wall. 10 days. The festival preparations are already underway. People will be busy, distracted. Use that. Gather allies if you can find any. Most residents won't help, but there are others like me, people who've carried guilt for decades, who might be willing to act if given the chance. Who? Maya asked. Who else might help? Thomas Blackwood's descendants. There are 3 of them left in town. All elderly now, but they carry the original founder's guilt in their blood. Speak to Martha Blackwood. She runs the town's historical society. She has documents even I've never seen, family records that might help. Rebecca's eyes were beginning to close. Now go, I'm tired, and you've got work to do. Lucas knows how to contact me if you need anything else. They left Rebecca dozing in her wheelchair, the afternoon sun painting the wild garden beyond in shades of gold and amber. As they walked back through the house, the caretaker returned, eyeing them suspiciously. She tell you what you wanted to know? Yes, Lucas said. Thank you. Whatever you're planning, be careful. People in this town don't like change, and they really don't like threats to the arrangement. She lowered her voice. But between you and me, I hope you succeed. My boy was taken 5 years ago. The town said he volunteered, said he was tired of fighting his illness. But he wasn't ill. He was 23 and healthy and happy. They chose him and I couldn't stop them. Her eyes glistened. If you can end this, if you can make sure no more mothers lose their children to that damn tree, then you have my support. For what little it's worth. What's your name? Maya asked. Diane Cross. My boy was Samuel Cross, Jr., named after his great-great-grandfather who...